The ones that are so it's kind of a tough question because there's a lot of like very small deals
Hmm.
that aren't we just
Yeah.
don't mess with at our firm. So we typically do the higher end of the SBA world, like the $1 to $5 million deals. But what's funny is the average deal sold, like if you go to Biz Buy Sell or these other big marketplaces, the average actual size is like 300K, very small. And that's just not big enough for our firm to get involved with. But the ones that are like at least a half a million in value to that 5 million in value range, I'd say like if they're SBA financeable, that's the direction most buyers go. I would say like 60 to 80% of those are going to be driven by the SBA math because even people that have $3 million of cash to buy a $3 million business, they're not going to put all their cash into it. They're going to get better return on their investment if they get some leverage. And SBA lending is the king in the under 5 million space. It's the only place you can get a business loan, and it's kind of unique to America where they underwrite it based on the strength of the business, not the strength of the borrower. And so people that don't have $3 million of collateral unencumbered to pledge against this $3 million business, they can just say, hey, I've got good credit, I've got good skills, I don't have the $3 million, but let's look at the strength of the historical finances of this business. And if you believe I'm the good person to come in and take the handoff and operate this thing, you're going to give me this loan based on the strength of the business. And the government is going to backstop that loan and give a guarantee to the bank. So if things do go south, the bank's made whole by the U.S. government. And that's how the SBA lending system works. And it really, small business is the backbone of our economy. And the SBA 7A program, which I was just describing, it really helps a ton of small businesses change hands successfully by opening that gate to financing based on the strength of the business itself that you're selling. So, yeah, if you got a good business that is doing, I'd say between 200,000 to a million in profit, however we define profit, like a very good chance your buyer is going to want to get an SBA loan. Very good chance.
Okay, so you mentioned on the SBA, may think of something, a deal I looked at one time. It was a company, and the SBA one year valued it at like 3.1 million, and the next year it went for like 1.5. Now they had not a terrible year, but they had a little bit of dip. But the big thing was the debt that they were carrying because it was in a certain space, and they needed a lot of working capital to kind of buy stuff and move stuff around. What is your advice to owners on debt? Like if they're carrying debt, should they pay it off before they sell? Wait for the sale to close? And then like with a working capital loan, how does that factor in?
That's a very individual tailored answer. But in general, I don't have a problem with you carrying debt as long as you understand the buyer doesn't want to buy your debt. So like if you're thinking about selling your business and you want to walk away with a wheelbarrow full of cash at closing, it's better to have already cleaned up that debt, and then you're going to be able to get a nice clean closing with a big wheelbarrow of cash at the end. If you've got a $3 million deal but you're carrying $2 million of acquisition debt or something like that on it, then the most you're going to get is $1 million at closing. You're not going to get your 3 million. And so one of the ways people get rich in small business acquisitions, buying and selling, is they'll leverage into the buy. And so they'll buy a business with 5-10% down, and then the cash flow of that business pays off the loan. And then when you sell, you get the entire proceeds debt, because the business paid off its own debt. And so you just don't get that 100% return on your down payment. I'm sorry, or 1,000% return or whatever it is when you when you uh, when you do that small down payment, let it pay for itself, and then sell if you don't pay off that debt. So definitely recommend paying it off, but you don't have to. You just need to know the buyer and the bank is going to expect it to be paid off because they're bringing their own acquisition debt to the table and they don't want your debt to go with it.